Hello, Chain Gang, and welcome back to the Four Chains Travel. For those of you who are new to our channel, we are full-time retirement travelers, and full-time travel, or slow travel as some people call it, is often referred to as an alternative to traditional retirement, which of course is pretty much everyone's dream to eventually be able to retire. But a lot of people don't consider retirement travel because they don't understand the financial math that makes it possible.
And now, to confuse things, there's a new contender, and that is micro retirement. In some ways, micro retirement is an offshoot of retirement travel, which is what we do. The logic being that if the principles that make retirement travel a viable and even preferable option to traditional retirement, if those principles hold true, maybe it would be better if you stepped all of those principles up and created micro retirement.
So today we're going to talk about the three types that we just mentioned and kind of compare and contrast them, as well as go over what we perceive as their strengths and weaknesses. The truth of the matter is that while there's probably a right answer for you in terms of the type of retirement that would be best for you, that's going to be different for everyone. So because different people are in different financial situations and have different responsibilities and different desires.
Yeah, and different ages.
Right.
I mean, when you're making any choice, whether it be a financial choice or a family choice or a career choice or choices about your health, all of those, if they're going to be good choices, it means they bring you joy in the short term or, more importantly, in the long term. Mm-hmm. And retirement is no different. The impetus behind micro retirement and retirement traveler is that if you think about the bucket list, if you think about experiences that you would be your dream to have while you're on this planet, those are the kinds of things that you would traditionally want to do during a regular retirement. But when you start to think about those experiences, you realize some of them will not be enjoyable or will be more difficult or downright impossible in a traditional retirement simply because of natural age progression.
Mm-hmm. And of course, something that kind of pushed us into this type of retirement is the fact that we realized through personal experience of people that we know well, that really nothing is guaranteed in life. And just because you spend most of your life saving up for a particular type of retirement, that doesn't mean that, you know, when you hit a certain age, it could be in your 50s, it could be in your 60s. If you're lucky, it won't be till much later. But you may have some kind of medical situation. You could get cancer or something, and that will prevent you from spending that retirement the way that you had hoped and planned and saved for most of your life.
Yeah, the cancer bug is really hitting us home with our friends and our family. The main difference between micro retirement and retirement travel is that when you micro retire, you are leaving a job that you have either for, as little as 3 or 4 months or as much as a year or more. You're leaving to do these bucket list things, but you have the intention of returning to the workforce, either at that job specifically or to a different career that maybe you realized you need when you were on your sabbatical.
Right. And that brings up a good point, which is that the difference is with micro retirement, what you just said, that you may or may not be returning to that particular job. Whereas when you have a traditional leave of absence or a sabbatical, you have every intention of returning to that job that you're in.
Yeah, interesting. This is a new concept. It's kind of replaced sabbatical out there, but already about 10% of employers will offer some form of paid micro retirement, presumably on, that would be if you're paid on a shorter term basis, I would say.
And I would ask that if you're watching this and you're one of those people in that 10%, please comment, because we saw the statistic and hopefully Jim will flash it up on the screen there. But we don't personally know anyone where that's the case. Certainly the jobs that we worked in, that wouldn't have been possible for us.
But I mean,
if it is for you, please comment so we know who's doing these jobs and what the jobs are.
When we're talking about a paid micro-retirement, the strengths and weaknesses become a lot easier because it is a good deal if you get paid and you want let's say you're in your 20s or 30s, you want to hike the Appalachian Trail. Darby Allen is on a paid micro-retirement. He's going to climb Mount Everest.
Darby Allen?
The guy who went through the glass. We'll throw that up. That's on a different channel over there. But here's the thing. Maybe this is more relevant. 30% of employers offer unpaid micro-retirement, which also might make it an attractive option. Now, the main incentive for employers is that if you ask any employer these days, well, basically any days, they will tell you that the key to their success is being able to have the right people to help them realize their potential and having that success. Mm-hmm. And the same thing is their key weakness. Their key weakness would be not having enough good people to do it. So it sounds like employers are getting ripped off. But if you think about it, in one sense, if they allow an employee to leave and then ideally return refreshed, re-energized, recharged, maybe even better at their job, that is much preferable than just losing that person and they're out of there.
Yeah, and in that time, that employee may also have had an opportunity to take advantage of learning some soft skills that maybe they didn't previously have. So they may be returning to the job and be better qualified to do it or bring more to the job.
We're going to touch on that later. But obviously for employees, the advantage is what we talked about, that being able to do these bucket list things while they are still physically capable of doing. Yeah, we have 2 daughters and they both love to travel, right?
Right.
And we are, when I'm talking about like the ability to be able to do certain things, our daughter is actually going to accompany us in April. Now,
this is the other daughter.
Yes, this is the youngest daughter is going to do that. And it is a situation where, well, just to spoil one of the weaknesses of retirement travel, I guess I'm skipping ahead, is time away from your friends and family. So when she offered to accompany us on part of our journey, we were really thrilled about it. But I'm going to bring up the journey. We've got a file here because I don't want to miss it. So get this straight, okay? So we're allowing her to dictate the agenda. We figure this means she'll stay with us longer. She might be more inclined to do it. But I want to read the agenda here. Did you want to chime in before I read the agenda?
Well, we're allowing her to kind of decide where we're going because we have been to Italy a lot of times ourselves. She's been she's been twice.
Yeah.
But we've been more than that. So there's areas that she wanted to explore. So we just told her to decide where we're going.
Yeah. So this is what we're doing. I'm going to read it here. Sorry to read, but we're going to London. Then we're going to the Amalfi Coast, a place she's never been in Italy. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to go and sleep in a few different caves in Matera. If you saw the latest James Bond movie, you know how cool the city of Matera is. Video to come.
The opening scene might be.
Yeah, it's the opening scene. And then we're going to tour the Puglia region of Italy. So, and this is where she wanted to go. We're going to go to Ostuni, Poliano a Mare, Alberobello, Monopoli, Loco Rotondo, Lecce, and Bari. But here's the thing.
Which is all in the heel of the boot.
Yeah, heel of the boot. This is all taking place in the month of April. And we're in our mid-50s.
So we have a little bit of concern that we're going to be able to keep up with everything she wants to do because she's in her 20s and very vivacious and energetic and in her 20s.
Yeah. So, when she leaves us in Bari, we're just going to stay in that same place for an entire month to recharge our batteries and do day trips and stuff to other things, but also observe the culture.
And of course, that's what we're really doing with retirement travel or slow travel. That's slow travel. That means you stay in one place for a bit of time and really live like a local as opposed to a vacationer.
Yeah. So the strength of micro retirement is that you can do these bucket list things. There are some weaknesses. I want to address the number one weakness in some articles that I've read, and that is you are sacrificing upward mobility. But I want to give you both sides because I think that could be a weakness, and in certain situations, it can be a strength. Now, for me, if you would have asked me, and a lot of times I would have said that it's a weakness, mostly because like my career was with Domino's. What I liked about Domino's was it was statistic based. There's not a lot of debate about who's great in Domino's, and being fairness is way too important to me than it should be for anybody who wants to live a mentally healthy life. But yeah, so, but I realized, hey, sales, labor, profits, all of those things, food costs, those things are measured. Everybody agrees. So I wanted to get into it. I started less than $5 an hour. What a saint, sticking with me during that time.
This was quite a long time ago.
Yes, it was quite a long time ago. And went through the assistant manager program. And I was just really focused on taking advantage of any promotion possibilities that I can have. Now, my competition for those promotions was my colleagues, and I'm friends with a lot of them today. Hey, guys and girls, but I got to say that while that was happening, if any one of them would have left, which wouldn't have been a thing. She said it was a long time ago. Back then, people didn't get burnout and leave jobs for a period of time to recharge their brain. It was unheard of. But if it would have happened, I would have considered that a huge advantage for me over them because, I was really focused on getting better all the time, and they would have missed out on that time. So here's the thing, though. There's a flip side to that because one of the reasons this subject fascinates me is I unintentionally took a micro retirement before it was even a term. Here's a highlighted example of it. I was fortunate enough to be manager of the year for the most important successful Domino's franchisee of all time, Frank Meeks. And then the following year, Domino's Corporate named me best operator of the country. Very lucky. I had some great teams. But then, speaking of not being able to spend your hard-earned money in retirement, Frank Meeks died unexpectedly at the age of 48. It was really hard for me to deal with Frank's death, just to be honest with you. And I needed to recover from that. But one of the reasons why Frank was so wealthy is that in the late 90s, he was the third highest paid motivational speaker on a per speech basis that there was. And when he passed, I was given the opportunity at much lower rates to be able to fill that vacuum and give some of those speeches. And I looked at it and I thought, well, wait a minute. Even if I'm only getting $5,000 a speech, which today I'm sure is very low for a speaker, but back then that was a lot of money for me, and I'm giving 3 or 4 speeches a month, we can make the same kind of money or even more, and I get a lot more time with my family. I coach soccer, I coach softball, I help with the plays, did all of those kinds of things, took a little bit of the burden off of Angie that she had to do when I'd been working 70 to 80 hours a week. So, but eventually, the thirst for competition got the better of me, and I really craved returning to Domino's. Now, when I returned, I took a pay cut to return to Domino's, and I was a general manager. But my time away coaching youth sports and being a mentor and a leader in the motivational speaking world, that added to my tool set. I had more skill sets, and I'm not being self-deprecating. Even though I had a lot of success in an individual manager, let's just say I don't think I was thought of as a person that was a good candidate to manage multiple stores. But upon my return, they looked at me differently. I quickly got promoted to regional director, which is like a multi-unit manager. You might think of it as an area supervisor. Well, here's the thing. I don't think I would have been there if I would have stayed and put in those hours. Maybe, but maybe not. Now, that's the weakness people talk about, so it could flip and be a strength. One weakness that can't flip and be a strength is the math, the financial aspect of it. I'm going to keep this short because we already have a video on preparing for retirement travel, and it talks about a lot of the finances of it. But when you leave the workforce, you are giving up a significant savings savings opportunity. Warren Buffett says the difference between poor people and rich people is just simply understanding compounding interest. The way we talk about that is the $36 rule. When I was a regional director, I would tell the managers of my stores, I would try to educate them, and I would say, hey, do you know how much money you will have if you put $36 away every single week from the age of 25 to 65? And the most common answer was $50,000 to $100,000, when in fact the answer is over $1 million, as long as you reinvest the interest and the dividends of those investments. That's where compounding interest comes out. So if you stop making that income, which of course, if they're paying you, that changes the math, you're giving up a lot of opportunity. And that consistent savings, even though our income wasn't huge, allowed us to send our kids to college and get out of college without a lot of debt.
Mm-hmm. Another thing to think about is the fact that employers take resume gaps very seriously. We had this happen when we were living in another part of the country than where we're from and where our family is. I had left my job in the local school system, and when we moved, I decided just to join Domino's Pizza as well. So I was working in the same franchise as Jim, and we ultimately had to come back to the area to help care for his mother when she was sick. And my old job actually opened up. And I did not get that job because I had left the job and I was doing something completely differently. You can say what you will about whether that was right or not, but I was somebody that had won a bunch of awards and was pretty highly esteemed in the position I was doing.
Very highly esteemed.
So it was kind of shocking, but that's something that can happen. So you need to look at, even though I didn't really have a gap in my resume, I just changed fields. That did come back to haunt me.
Yeah, the same kind of thing happened to me. I mean, I took a little over a year off to help my mom, and my position came open in my hometown here, and they didn't really have any interest in hiring me, even though I actually had the franchisee call me and say, hey, we moved into the office when he had purchased these stores and said, this storage room is like a shrine to you. There's so many awards with your name on it. I was like, hey, great. Any interest in hiring me? There was none. He hired a bunch of young people that were from countries that have a different work ethic than we have currently. So that was his thing. He really wanted to do that. And I don't know whether it was a resume gap or the fact that there was a 5 in front of my age, but it just wasn't available.
I really feel, talking to a lot of people, that having the 5 in front of your age, really, it's not supposed to legally affect anything, but it really does. Employers, I feel like, do discriminate in many cases based on age.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about.
Okay, so then the next option is retirement travel, which is what we do. We're not going to go into this like we went into micro retirement because we already have videos of this comparing retirement travel and why we chose it and how you can do it too and the steps that you have to take to prepare, as I said. But for those of you that are new to the channel, retirement travel, the premise behind that is you sell your house, you sell your car, you sell all your possessions, and then you use the equity from those sales to give you income, and you live and travel full-time off of the income from that equity. And there's other things in terms of playing the points and miles game that allows us to do that financially, but that's essentially the premise of it. Now, believe me, when we try to tell our family and friends, they're confused about this because if you're new to the channel, you probably think that traveling is the most expensive chunks of time in your life. And they are, but that's vacation traveling. Right. Retirement travel is a system where you are traveling slower. You are taking advantages of the benefits with points and miles and stuff that you can get from full-time travel. And you're able to experience those things at a slower pace and a much better financial situation, right? So if you retirement travel in your 50s, maybe the Appalachian Trail or hiking Mount Everest is out of your thing, but out of your wheelhouse, but a lot of things you still are able to do.
So even with that being said, the overwhelming amount of people are still probably going to end up doing traditional retirement travel. Even the ones watching this that that are buying into the fact that that is a possibility for a lot of people. So to start, I would say that some of the strengths that come to mind with traditional retirement travel for me are things like just security. You're not dealing with having to figure out where you're living next in terms of if you're staying in an Airbnb for a month here and then traveling there, how are you getting there? You're living in your house that you've lived in probably, or your apartment, or whatever the situation is for a long time. And you're in a routine and it's predictable and it's safe and secure. So if you're somebody who's really freaked out by change and things like that, traditional retirement might be a great option for you. Also, if you live close to family and friends, if you've lived in the same place a long time, you've probably established very ingrained relationships and support systems around you. So that's definitely a pro for traditional retirement.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we're all taught. It's the American dream. You go to school. You work hard in school so you can get into a good college. You get a degree. You get a job that is from that degree, and you work in that job till you're 65. Along the way, you raise a family, you purchase a house, and then when you're 65, hopefully you have enough savings where you can stay in that house and you can continue to work, and it is the safest option. I agree. The fear is the biggest driving force for the majority of the population, and the biggest fear people have long term is not being able to support themselves in retirement. And
you should be responsible and plan for how you're going to pay for things like medical costs and retirement. But that doesn't mean it always has to be the traditional way that we're taught it is.
Yeah, I mean, a huge advantage to me, like what Angie said, family and friends. We see them when we get home, but I like the idea of, being able to see them on an impromptu thing, hang out for the Super Bowl or go to dinner. We have these things we do, hoot nannies, where we all kind of get together and play instruments and sing, and it's all improvised, and we do it for like 4 hours, and we have a great time.
I'm just a dog. Just turn around now. You're not welcome anymore. Weren't you the one that tried to break me when I can't crumble? You did not say I would die. I will survive. Oh, as long as I know how to love, I know I'll be alive. And I got all my life to live, and I got all my love to give.
And that is great. It's the stage after this that I'm concerned about, because even though we're taught that is the American dream, we should all be in such a celebratory, ecstatic mood when we retire. But now that we've gotten to this age and we've watched people in that stage, they don't seem quite as happy and fulfilled as we normally would think they would be, because they have the American dream.
Well, particularly if you stop using your brain, because you become so ingrained with those sedentary and predictable things in your life. Whereas if you're traveling, you are constantly being exposed to new cultures, new languages. You're having to really work hard to figure out how you're getting from place to place and where you're going to spend your time. So the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is a con for traditional retirement, is...
No, it's a pro for traditional retirement. It's a con for retirement travel.
It's pets. It's pets. If you have pets, that's going to make retiring and traveling at the same time kind of tricky. You're going to have to put a lot of thought into it, and it might actually impact the type of travel you're able to do.
Yeah. So really, all three of these retirement options can work depending on who you are and what you want in life. So take some time and do some reflection. Watch our other videos and
like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Sorry, I always forget to say that. But, I want you to comment about what you think are the strengths and weaknesses, because we really enjoy the community aspect of this YouTube channel. People sharing the ideas. It doesn't matter if you disagree with it. Go ahead and chime out. That pets idea came from a viewer that really wants to do retirement traveler, but just too attached to her pet.
I could never do this because of my pets. And that's fine. That's the choice that she's making. It's a trade-off. And, there's tons of times we wish that we could have, had our own pet. But it's been a trade-off. We had to sacrifice that because of the type of lifestyle we were living. So again, it's pros and cons, deciding what's right for each person, what's right for you. And we really do want people to comment.
Please.
It will help us if you've gotten any value from the videos that we make. It does help us if you comment on them because it drives the algorithm, which is great
that's
for
true
us.
as well.
But it also exposes more people. And the more people are exposed, the more can comment and kind of form this community where we can have discussion about the things that we're talking about. So I really do want somebody in that 10% of the micro travel group. Let me know what your job is. I definitely want to know if that person is out there.
Now, one thing you should also know, just to tack in here, one of the advantages of retirement travelers, you can seek out less expensive and we have found so far superior medical care. So along those lines, we are, as you watch this video, right after you've seen, if you see it on day one, we're going to Mexico. Angie's getting her follow-up dental surgery in Mexico. We will put a video on that. Is there anything else that we want to comment on?
I think that we are good.
Okay, so
See you next time on the Four Chains Travel.